Motivation is essential to almost any aspect of life. Nature has an intrinsic motivation. It does what it does in and out of itself, so to speak, without further reflection. What difference with human activity? It's a vast difference. There are few humans on this planet who don't question or reflect on their motivation for certain tasks every day. And yet, however, it's such an underdeveloped field of research. There are many theories, but from their diversity we can glean their inability to capture the complexity of human motivation in a simple, natural way. Maybe it's because the word motivation is most often used in reference to the professional realm. While activity is an innately human activity, work is not necessarily. Our modern-day work arrangement is a large-scale system aimed, amongst many other things of course, at creating global productivity and scalability, measurability, so to speak. We participate in and out of free will, but also because there is little other choice. No work, no pay. This is where human motivation comes from, really. How do you motivate people that aren't really doing it because it's their birthright, so to speak, and they feel subconsciously compelled to do it? That's what motivation theories are all about. And what this presentation strives to explain. I want to stress that this is not an academic approach we have here, it's our personal point of view. So this presentation is aimed at business owners, managers, entrepreneurs, human resources personnel who are interested in the general concept of motivation and motivation theory. A couple of polarities of motivation that you will find in the theories and that serve to create clarity on one's own motivation. As with all polarities, it's not about either or, but about the position one has in a certain spectrum. Positive versus negative. Motivating forces can be positive, as in impelling one to reach a certain goal. They can also be negative, as in driving one away from an unwanted situation. You can be positively motivated about going to work, for instance, because you like your colleagues and some parts of the work, and negatively motivated, of course, because you have bills to pay. Yeah? Moving away from poverty, for instance. And you wouldn't dare not to show up. Another such spectrum is internal versus external. There is an internal motivation or push. It's an internal state that impels one to act towards achieving a certain goal. Then there is external motivations or pull. It's when an external goal influences one's behavior towards them. Behavior is a complex blend of internal pushes and external pulls. You can be internally motivated, for instance, to go to work because it makes you feel useful and needed and creative. At the same time, for instance, it is expected of you by your environment, your surroundings, and you may be doing something that only partly fulfills your desires. So in a way, you accept a compromise. Another spectrum is basic versus learned. Motivation leans on motives. Motives are often categorized into basic motives and learned motives. Basic or primary motives are unlearned and common to both animals and human beings as well. We're talking about hunger, thirst, sexual drives, avoidance of pain, and perhaps aggression and fear. The learned or secondary motives include achievement, power, recognition, love, and so forth. You go to work to get food and also in order to avoid to be excluded socially. And you also go to work and follow your endeavours there to achieve something and possibly order others around. Yeah, there are different theories about what constitutes and creates motivation. And I'd like to kind of give you a brief overview here. I've selected the most well-known approaches and kind of summed them up for you here. I looked up several resources, of course, and I did my research for each and created a short description. So just to zoom in, as well as practical implications on the work floor, so to speak. I can't claim absolute correctness or completeness, of course. This is not, to be understood perfectly academically, but I dare say I've come pretty close to the matter, which is motivation, of course. First, need theories. Need theories revolve around the fulfillment of an internal state that makes certain outcomes appear attractive. These theories form the basic foundations of motivation theories and are the most straightforward. There are three main needs theories. Maslow's pyramid of needs, of course, and it's the hierarchy of needs. Maslow was an American psychologist, of course, who was best known for creating Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a theory of psychological health predicated on fulfilling innate human needs and priority, culminating in self-actualization at the very top. Mr. Maslow was a psychology professor at Alliant International University, Brooklyn College as well, the New School for Social Research, and Columbia University as well in the United States. He stressed the importance of focusing on the positive qualities of people. There are some pretty interesting interviews on YouTube as well, where Mr. Maslow is being questioned and challenged about his approaches, as opposed to treating them as a bag of symptoms, these different needs. A review of general psychology survey published in 2002, there's an interesting bit of information, actually ranked Maslow as the 10th most cited psychologist of the 20th century. Maslow's theory states that people have a pyramid hierarchy of needs. So there is different ranks, and these ranks will satisfy from bottom to the top. There are deficiency needs that will stifle any other movement if they're not satisfied, inhibit them basically. And growth needs, on the other hand, that can be progressively satisfied once the basics have been covered. Maslow's theory states that people have a pyramid hierarchy of needs that they will satisfy from bottom to top, as I said, starting from mere psychological subsistence, very basic needs. They cover belonging to a social circle, for instance, to pursuing your talent through self-actualization. Important to this theory is that Maslow felt that unfulfilled needs lower on the ladder would inhibit the person from climbing to the next step. So it's a step-by-step approach in this model. The needs are divided into two categories. Deficiency needs, as I mentioned before, that is physiological and safety. And on the other hand, growth needs, as in belonging, self-esteem, and at the very top, self-actualization. If the deficiency needs are not satisfied, the person will feel the deficit, and this will stifle his or her development. Maslow's hierarchy of needs applied to work situations implies that managers, superiors, and so forth have the responsibility, firstly, to make sure that their people's deficiency needs are met. This means, in broader terms, a safe environment, for instance, and proper wages. Secondly, it implies creating a proper climate in which employees can develop their fullest potential. That's kind of the very basic idea of healthy or health-oriented leadership. Failure to do so would theoretically increase employee frustration and could result in poorer or more basic performance, lower job satisfaction as well, and increased withdrawal from the organization. So the likelihood increases that people will just be present, but they don't fulfill what is required from them. For example, in this theory, job insecurity and the threat of layoffs, people being afraid of the fact that they might be made redundant, will block the person from their higher growth needs. They might work harder to get security, but without fulfilling their other needs, it's not worth it. If security doesn't return, they will fulfill their needs elsewhere or simply burn out. And that's, of course, something managers and superiors have to be very much aware of. All right, the second model is ALDERFER'S ERG model. Alderfer was born in Sellersville in Pennsylvania, USA, and he obtained his bachelor degree in psychology in the 1960s, 1962, I think it was, at Yale University, where he also obtained his PhD in psychology in 1966. In the 70s, late 70s, 1977, he also obtained a certification by the American Board of Professional Psychology. ALDERFER'S model condenses Maslow's 5 human needs into 3 categories. First, existence, material and physiological. Secondly, relatedness, social and external esteem. And thirdly, growth as an internal esteem and self-actualization, which was positioned in the very top of Maslow's pyramid of needs. ALDERFER'S, or CLAYTON ALDERFER'S ERG theory from 1969 condenses Maslow's 5 human needs into 3 categories, as I said before: existence, relatedness, and growth. And I'd like to kind of zoom in on these 3 categories a little more detail. So the first thing is really existence needs. This includes all material and physiological desires, as in food, water, air, clothing, physical love, affection, safety, and so forth. This also corresponds closely to Maslow's first 2 levels. Secondly, in ALDERFER'S model, it's relatedness needs. These encompass social and external esteem. Relationships with significant others like family, friends, employers, co-workers, and so forth. This also means to be recognized and feel ensure, to feel secure as part of a group or a family. This level corresponds to Maslow's 3rd and 4th levels. Thirdly, growth needs, internal esteem and self-actualization. These impel a person to make creative or productive effects on himself and also, obviously, the environment. For instance, progressing towards your ideals or your ideal self. Maslow's 4th and 5th levels, basically. This includes desires to be creative, productive, and to complete meaningful tasks. Even though the priority of these needs differ from person to person, Herzberg prioritizes in terms of the category's concreteness. So, for instance, existence needs are the most concrete and precise needs and easiest to verify. Relatedness needs are less concrete than existence needs, one has to say, which depend on relationship or on a relationship between 2 or more people. Finally, growth needs are the least concrete in that their specific objectives depend on the uniqueness of each person. What does that mean for the work level? On the work level, ALDERFER'S model implies that superiors must recognize their employees' multiple simultaneous needs. So, this means focusing exclusively on one need at a time will not motivate your people whatsoever. The frustration regression principle impacts workplace motivation. For instance, if growth opportunities are not provided to employees at all, they may regress to relatedness needs and socialize more with co-workers and colleagues. If you can recognize these conditions earlier, steps can be taken to satisfy the frustrated needs until the employee is able to pursue growth again. So, the third model would be McClelland's achievement motivation theory. Now, McClelland was also an American psychologist noted for his work on motivation. The need theory. He published a number of works during the 1950s and the 1990s and developed new scoring systems for the thematic perception test, TAT. That would be the abbreviation for it, and its descendants, of course. McClelland is credited with developing achievement motivation theory, commonly referred to as the need for achievement or an achievement theory. McClelland acquired needs theory states that an individual's specific needs are required over time according to one's life experiences. He described three types of motivational needs: achievement motivation, on one hand, authority and power motivation, on the other hand, and thirdly, affiliation motivation. In his 1961 book, The Achievement Society, McClelland expounded on his acquired needs theory. He proposed that an individual's specific needs are acquired over time and are shaped by one's life experiences. A person's motivation and effectiveness in certain professional functions are influenced by these three needs, according to McClelland. Achievement motivation. The person is achievement motivated and therefore seeks achievement, attainment of realistic but challenging goals, and advancement in the job. There is a strong need for feedback about achievement and progress, and a need for a sense of accomplishment. People with a high need for achievement seek to excel and thus tend to avoid both low-risk and high-risk situations. Achievers avoid low-risk situations because the easily attained success is not a genuine achievement. In high-risk projects, achievers see the outcome as one of chance rather than one's own efforts. So these individuals prefer work that has a moderate probability of success, ideally a 50% chance. They prefer either to work alone or with other high achievers. Authority and power motivation. These people are authority motivated. This drive produces a need to be influential, effective, and to make really an impact. There is a strong need to lead and for their ideas to prevail. They want to dominate. There is also motivation and need towards increasing personal status and prestige. A person's needs for power can be one of two types, basically, institutional and personal on the other hand. Those who need personal power want to direct others, and this need often is perceived as undesirable. Persons and people who need institutional power, also known as social power, want to organize the efforts of others to further the goals of the organization. Managers with a high need for institutional power tend to be more effective than those with a high need for personal power. Thirdly, affiliation motivation. These people are affiliation motivated, and this sort of person has a need for friendly relationships and is, feels motivated toward interaction with other people. They need rather harmonious relationships with other people and need to feel accepted by other people. The affiliation driver produces motivation and need to be liked and held in popular regard. These people are team players, really. People who score high in this motive tend to conform to the norms of their work group. They prefer work that provides significant personal interaction. They perform well in customer service, for instance, and client interaction situations. McClelland's needs are found to varying degrees in all workers and managers, and their mix of motivational needs characterizes a person's or manager's style and behavior, both in terms of being motivated and in the management and motivation of others. People with different needs are motivated differently. High need for achievement. High achievers should be given challenging projects with reachable goals. They should be provided frequent feedback. While money is not really an important motivator in itself, rather it is an effective form of feedback. High need for affiliation. Employees with a high affiliation need, perform best in a cooperative environment. And thirdly, high need for power. Management should really provide power seekers the opportunity to manage others.